Isaiah Aidil Ibrahim will deliver his speech entitled Every 40 Seconds.
Growing up different wasn't always easy. It was actually kind of hard. It was hard to be the only different kid in class because everyone looked at me funny because I didn't look like them, sound like them, or even speak like them. I once even overheard teachers talking about me, saying things like, "Oh, no wonder he turned out that way. He doesn't even have a father." These differences are what created a wall that separated me from so many people, experiences, and love. I was 12 at the time, so I didn't really take it that well. I stopped eating, stopped smiling. That was the first time I thought of killing myself. Time and time again, tales akin to my story have been told, and sometimes they were told a little too late. According to the World Health Organization, it's said that for every 40 seconds that passes, a person loses their life to suicide. That's more than 700,000 people a year. And whether we like to admit it or not, so often we get blinded by emotions. They engulf us alive like an untethered flame that strips us of the ability to think straight. I mean, think of that time when a car cut you off and you had to slam on the brakes. That rage that filled you when it happened. Maybe the only thing you could think of was, what's the most creative insult I could scream out the window right now? But in a few moments after that, you would start to cool down. Brush it off or even laugh about it. But what if you didn't cool down? You stayed in that dark space, and when other bad things happened, you start to think that maybe it was meant to be that way. That maybe you deserved it. That is how the suicidal mind works. Awful thoughts start to plague our mind and eat away at my being. And when it gets to a certain point, you start to think that maybe ending it is the only way out. But this kind of thing only happens in America, right? Because of their Western upbringing and because they're so dramatic. Well, newsflash, the top 10 countries with the highest suicide rates are all in the eastern and southern parts of the world. And by the time I finish this speech, 8 people have lost their lives just because they were so caught up with the idea that they didn't matter. I mean, that's what 12-year-old Isaiah felt. Because when you're in that moment and all you can do is feel, you tend to forget. You forget that to experience how beautiful and how sorrowful life can be is an honor. To get to live to the end of your life, 70 to 100 years, and to show it. To have lines with a smile to them, creases that show how hard you've worked, and scars filled with memories and stories to tell. So what I'm trying to say to you is that when life gets a little too hard and it feels like everyone around you has turned their backs against you, I want you to take a step back and breathe. And I know I can't fully understand the pain you're going through, but I do know that whatever you're feeling right now will be felt 100 times over by the people around you if you leave. So please remember that you matter. You always did, and you always will. And God I have no idea why all of this had to happen to me, but in a way, I'm grateful that it did. I mean, look at me. If I chose to give up, well, I wouldn't be here, competing against the 9 best in Malaysia. As my mom and brother watch, I'd say proudly, thank you.
Thank you very much for that speech, Isaiah. Now the judges will deliver 2 questions to the contestants.
Hi, Isaiah. Now, how do you think that one can distress themselves? And what would you recommend an unhappy friend to do if he's unhappy and to make him feel better?
Thank you so much for your question. As for somebody who had experienced it in the past, as for somebody who had experienced suicidal thoughts in the past, if that was my friend, and if I did see them suffer the way that I did, or even more than I did, definitely I would always be there for them, And if it gets to a certain point where it's the only thing that they think of and it eats them, and everyday activities becomes too hard for them to handle, I would definitely ask them, plead them to seek for professional advice. Because that's the only way that it can be solved. We're all normal human beings. We all experience the same things, and we have to sometimes leave it up to professionals.
Do you believe in positive thinking?
Well, thank you for your question. And in a way, yes, I do. And also, like how I stated in my speech, that negative thoughts, they're only negative if you think that it's negative, So, like how I also experienced suicidal thoughts, if I did interpret them too much negatively, they would have eaten me alive. And I wouldn't have my mother and brother be so proud of me, because I probably wouldn't even be a Taylors, let's be honest. So, yes, to answer your question, I do think that positive thoughts are always good, but we have to not always ignore the negative, We have to embrace it.